morning, parents, students, teachers, and all who attended this TED Talk. You spent your day hearing about the leading politicians and the biggest projects in our world, but for a moment, let's take the conversation away from the desk of politicians and back to the dinner tables at home, which we are all so familiar with. Today, we will be rethinking the future of education. I'm Daniel Aria, and welcome to my TED Talk. So, why am I here giving this presentation? To explain this question, I first must explain to you how I'm here. See, 4 years ago, I was at the worst point in my academic journey in my last school. In this school, not only were my grades down, but my behavior was even worse. Now, as these small bouts with teachers and behavior started to get more and more frequent, I started to get into more trouble. And motivationally, I was at a very low point. I had no motivation towards my classes or towards improving myself in school. It wasn't until I left that school and came to a new school, and we did the personal project where I did my first, and I felt my first experience of being fully immersed into my class. The personal project is a project here which allows a student to take a passion or an interest of theirs and interpret a prompt through it, and do a whole project by themselves based on that passion. Now, for the first time in my academic journey, I found myself fully engaged and applied in school. Now, unfortunately, not many students experience a personal project like I did, and as a matter of fact, many students are very unsatisfied with their educations. All around the world, there's complaints about the education system being archaic, a one-size-fits-all education system, and saying it's industrialized. Unfortunately, this education system is having a toll on the mental health of our students. As seen here, the second leading cause of death amongst 15 to 19-year-old teenagers and college students is suicide. Whilst in Japan, on the first day of school, the suicide rate is 3 times higher than on other days of the year. Nearly half students report a persistent feeling of sadness or hopelessness. There are students here in this crowd right now. Half of those students, according to the numbers here, are feeling these feelings. According to the Centers for Disease Control, education and grades have a direct correlation to the student's mental health. As seen here in the graphs on the bottom left of the screen, students with D's and F's are reported to not only feel more sad and hopeless, but these feelings are leading to these students, these children, seriously considering committing suicide. Now, why is this happening? Why are the students of our schools going down mentally and struggling in school? Well, through the copious hours of research I did for this talk, many fingers were pointed at many different things, but what I found, the most common answer for this issue was that students felt like they were being approached in a one-size-fits-all approach, and I mentioned this earlier. This approach essentially means that every student is treated the exact same way, every student is given the exact same task in the exact same subject with the exact same amount of time to finish that task. Treating every student the same not only takes away a student's individuality, but it does not cater towards that student's weaknesses. And this is why people call this system archaic and industrialized. Speaking of its industrialization, this beautiful man here is Sir John D. Rockefeller. Mr. John D. Rockefeller is an oil tycoon and is one of the founding members of the General Education Board. This board is the first governmentally recognized education board in the United States. So, what does an oil tycoon have to do with education, and why is he so into it and so cautious with it, trying to make it as big as possible, trying to grow education? This man wanted factory workers. He saw that in his branches and in his company, factory workers were at a low as people started to think and started to go out on their own entrepreneurship journeys. He was quoted saying, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers." This man wanted to strip the nation's youth of their individuality, their creativity, their ability to think independently, and produce a generation of robots to further his own gain. So we've talked about oil industries, we've talked about multi-million-dollar conglomerate businesses and governments. How do I, as a student, plan on approaching this challenge and overcoming this challenge? To be honest, it starts with everyone in this room today. When you leave this room, I would like everyone to take a serious look at either themselves or their children or even their students and ask yourself, do you think they are fully happy? Or even ask them, Once we start looking at the students' feelings and how they are feeling in schools, we can find the problem. We can approach the problem and we can implement personalized learning. Personalized learning is something that we do great here at this school. And it's what initially made me so interested in my academics. Personalized learning takes a student, identifies that student's weaknesses, strengths, passions, goals, and tailors an education towards that student. And this education won't make the student feel mentally depressed, won't make the student feel down, won't produce workers. This education will develop a system of students who are creative, innovative, and want to think and not work in factories like John D. Rothschild wanted. So, where do we go from here? Where do we start implementing personalized learning? Well, for the low-price options for schools with lower budgets, it starts as simple as things like the personal project or 4-day school weeks, very low-level implementations of personalized learning. But the high-budget ones, implementing technology, those options are limitless. From virtual reality spaces for personalized learning that promote growth and innovativeness in the students, to augmented reality environments, all the way to students being able to take their thoughts and produce tangible product using 3D printers. These are the things that we need to push in our schools. And before I leave you today, I would like to leave you guys with a quote from one of the greatest minds who's ever touched this earth. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Once again, I'm Aria, and thank you for listening to my TED Talk.